Sawadika, everyone. Thank you for joining my online cooking class today. We'll go over just a couple of ground rules as people are still kind of filing in and joining the chat. So while we wait for everyone, please feel free to turn your camera on and your mic on, or feel free to leave them off if you're more comfortable that way. You can also participate in the comments section in the chat. I can see all of those, so if you have a question, you can ask there as well, and otherwise feel free to enjoy merely as a spectator. So I will go ahead and sort of begin to introduce today's recipe, just so that we can get acquainted with it again as we wait to make sure everyone's had ample time to join. So today's recipe is something really exciting, and it is a dessert, but I like to think that as far as desserts go, it's a healthier option with more vitamins and nutrients and a little bit less sugar, fat, and cholesterol than some choices. Plus, it is something that's easy to have on hand if you're expecting company. It's wonderful for a gathering because you can make it and keep it all day for people to enjoy, rather than something like ice cream or profiteroles that need to be kept at a very specific temperature in order to maintain their taste and texture. So, the recipe I am talking about comes from Thailand. Now, you may guess, looking at me, that I am not Thai, but I have spent a good deal of time in Thailand and traveling throughout Southeast Asia, and this is a recipe that took me by surprise. I normally have a hard, fast rule about dessert that says if you're gonna have dessert, and if you're going to enjoy fruit, enjoy fruit. I don't typically mix them together. There are obviously some major exceptions, like apple pie and today's recipe, which has mangoes on sticky rice. So, if you've never made sticky rice before, please don't feel intimidated. I hope to give you all of the information you need to make this relatively simple dish, and you can probably make it with things that you do have on hand. However, I will show you some of the more specialized equipment that would be helpful for the most authentic result. So, I see most of you are coming in, so let's start talking about today's recipe, which is versatile, good for entertaining as people drop by. It's room temperature, like I said, so it keeps very well during a gathering or celebration. It's one of my favorite things to eat while I'm in Thailand because it's light enough to enjoy in the heat and humidity, but it has a refreshing brightness that always feels just right in the land of smiles. Thai mango sticky rice is known as khao niao mamung. Khao niao mamung. And I hope I'm doing that justice. My tonal Thai is obviously quite bad, but I try. It is the ultimate comfort dessert. It's sweet, salty, creamy, and refreshing at any time of year. And the secret to it lies in using the right kind of rice and then ensuring that rice is properly steamed, never boiled. Now, you may have heard that you can make sticky rice in the microwave, and I will say that my Thai mother-in-law, who taught me this recipe, even admits that she does that sometimes and that it can work just fine. The drawback is that you then have less control over the end result, meaning it's easier to end up with mushy or crunchy rice. So you really have to know exactly what you're doing and the settings of your microwave. So if you're going to try it, practice first. Of course, it takes a lot longer to do it the traditional way, but I think the results are worth it. I wouldn't call myself a great cook. I've known some great cooks in my life, and what they do is art. But I do like to think I know a thing or two about what's comforting, and there's nothing more comforting than a home-cooked meal. If you don't always have the time to meal plan and grocery shop like me, you might want to give Home Chef a try. I'm so grateful to Home Chef for their continued support, because it just so happens to be the subscription meal kit we've used in my own home for years. Honestly, years. And I'm not alone in my Home Chef adoration. A third-party survey found that Home Chef has the best tasting recipes and also the easiest to follow ones, which makes it easy to get the whole family involved in the cooking process. And your kitchen doesn't have to look like a nightmare to run like a dream, because Home Chef uses minimal pans for easy cleanup. Phew. I love their vegetarian meals like this week's luscious brown butter beets gnocchi. But Home Chef features a wide variety of options with everything from protein packed to calorie conscious, so everybody's happy. Thank you to Home Chef for sponsoring this video. You can head to homechef.yt.link/18zpnvu to get 50% off and free shipping on your first Home Chef box with code Springbok50. You can also use the QR code or just head to Home Chef, and again, that code is Springbok50. Thank you so much for supporting my sponsors. I really only like to bring you sponsors that I actually use and believe in, and they help me create long-form content like this without those pesky mid-roll ads. So thank you so much for watching, and now back to that content. So now that everyone is here, I'm trying to kind of look in the chat. Welcome, students. Would anyone like to share why they want to learn how to make sticky rice? Yes, go ahead.
I really enjoy Asian cuisine, and I have always wanted to learn how to cook sticky rice so that I could make my own sushi. So that's why I'm wanting to learn.
Well, I like rice, and usually the stickier the better, so why not learn how to make sticky rice, right?
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for sharing. And as I said, as we go along, please feel free to signal to me either by putting a hand up. If you have your video on, I can see them on my screen. And I can also see the chat messages. I kept that private just so that it doesn't get too cluttered with questions, but I will do my best to stay on top of any questions or comments you may have, so please feel free to interject and I will attempt to answer them to the best of my ability. For now, I would like to start by talking about ingredients. Far and away the most important thing here. So, I will show them to you, but first I'm going to just give you a list in case you like to write it down. Although at the end of this session you will all get an email with the recipe, some tips, and notes on today's session, as well as, of course, all of the ingredients you'll need. So feel free to take notes if that's helpful to you, to put it in your own language. Otherwise, you can just listen. But let's go to that ingredient list. First and foremost, you'll need your sticky rice, and you'll want 1.5 cups of glutinous rice. This is also labeled as sweet rice or sticky rice. Next, you'll need 1 cup full fat coconut milk, and canned is perfect for richness. So if you can get it in a can, that's just right. Then 1/2 cup granulated sugar, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and then you'll need toppings. So you'll want 2 to 3 ripe mangoes, 1/2 cup of that coconut milk for the topping sauce, and you'll want 1 tablespoon of sugar for that topping sauce as well. So you'll divide your sugar. You'll also want 1 teaspoon of corn starch, and you'll mix this with 1 teaspoon of water, and that should thicken things up nicely. You'll also want toasted sesame seeds for crunch on the top. So with all of those ingredients, especially talking about the cornstarch, the coconut milk, and the sugar, you will want to give yourself a little bit of liberty to use those at your discretion. You may find yourself wanting to balance out the taste and make it to your own taste. I like it a little bit sweet. Some people really like to let the tartness of the mango through, and some people like it very creamy. You'll also want to pay attention to thickness in that sauce so that it's not too runny, so the viscosity can be adjusted with that cornstarch. Does anyone have any preliminary questions about these ingredients? I'm seeing a couple questions come up in the chat regarding the rice. So let's take a closer look at that rice. So I'm going to grab some. I have it right over here. Oh, it's very heavy. Alright, so this is the rice that I will be using. And so in the chat, let me just see here, it looks like people are asking a couple questions. So one is this the same as waxy rice? Yes, that's absolutely correct. This is the same as waxy rice, sometimes called glutinous rice, sticky rice, or even sweet rice. So a couple of you are asking about those distinctions, and those are all talking about the same kind of rice. It's a very starchy kind. There are many varieties. Yes. Yes, you had a question.
Where could I find that rice? Is there a store or a supplier that you recommend?
Ah, yes, where to shop? Well, your first and best bet is going to be any Asian market. So, off the top of my head, H Mart, 99 Ranch, Wajmaya, if you have one. But most towns have some form of Asian market, and undoubtedly you'll be able to find sticky rice there. If you can't, or if you don't have one near you, you can simply go into most major grocery stores, supermarkets, and they typically will have an international section, and you can usually find it there. Many store managers will also order things like this by request, and of course you can always order online. So there are many, many places to get sticky rice. Yes. Another question.
What's the difference between glutinous rice and like jasmine rice? Could you use standard white rice instead? Does that matter?
Ah, yes. So, sticky rice has a higher percentage of amylopectin starch. Yes, amylopectin starch, and that makes it gluey and clumpy when it's cooked. Jasmine rice has significantly less starch, although it has more starch than many varieties, so in a pinch you might be able to make it work. But in profile, it's much more floral and much more fragrant than this sweet, rich, sticky rice here, okay? Does that make sense? Okay, so in the chat, I'm seeing a question about the origin. Yes, and you'll see this is a Thai brand of rice, you can see. However, and I would say that for this recipe in particular, I would certainly recommend Thai sticky rice if you can find it. That being said, any sticky rice really should work. The Japanese variety of sticky rice would be just fine. So really any sticky rice, again, sweet rice, glutinous rice, waxy rice, sticky rice. Yes, any sticky rice will be nice. Alright, more ingredient questions? Please don't be shy. Yes, go ahead.
So I never know how to pick the right mangoes. Is there like a particular, should they look or smell a certain way, or should they be a certain texture or firmness?
Right, mango ripeness. Perfect question. I have some mangoes here actually. So, these are a couple mangoes, and you'll see that looking at color can be a bit confusing, okay? The color on the mangoes is going to be really different given the different kinds of mangoes. and a lot of other factors, so it's not the best indicator of ripeness. It also sort of comes down to preference. Typically, the less green you see, the further along they are in their sort of ripeness journey, if you will. However, these ones are still a good examples of how to test, because one thing you can always do is smell right here at the stem, okay? And what you want to smell for is, set one down. You're trying to smell if there's a good amount of fragrance coming through. A really ripe mango is going to smell fragrant and fruity right there at the stem, okay? So that's something to look for. Now beyond that, texture, and you can give it a little squeeze, nothing too aggressive, and start to feel, does it have just the tiniest bit of give under your fingers? Okay, a good mango will give slightly, just slightly when pressed. And so between feeling for that sort of slight give and then smelling at the stem, you'll be able to determine if it is the way you like it. Again, some of this is going to come down to preference, so just testing. You know, I usually get more than I need at the store, by one or two, just so that I can kind of get a variety and pick the best one if possible. So, and you can always find more uses or make another batch in a couple of days too, so you're not wasting any of the mango. But yes, so any other questions about the mangoes, or you know, anything? Yes, go ahead.
Would you recommend a certain brand of mangoes, or like mangoes from a certain region?
Great question. So, Nom Doc Mai, or honey champagne, aka Atofo mangoes, are ideal for this. That being said, you can balance out tart or overly sweet mangoes with more sugar or less sugar in the sauce. So it's easy to sort of taste and balance, because it's very easy to adjust the recipe. If you make it too sweet on accident, you can always just add a little bit more cream to balance that. So yes, and it's not always possible, depending on where you live and the time of year, to get exactly the mango you might want. So that's another versatility of this recipe. It's easy to sort of account for different kinds of mangoes. So great. So let's talk a little bit about the materials you might need to make this. So first of all, like you've seen, we have the mangoes, of course, and the rice. You'll also want some sesame seeds to kind of put on the top. So these are just simple organic sesame seeds, and these just provide such a nice little crunch. we're just gonna give them a tiny little toast. Not a toast like Prost, but a toasting. And then we'll top with them. People also use mung bean and other things. Anything that gives it a crispness can be nice, but I prefer the simple sesame seed. You also want your coconut milk, and again, a can of coconut milk is just perfect here. It's going to be the fattiest and again, easy, inexpensive to get this way almost anywhere you can buy groceries. So a little bit of coconut milk, unsweetened. Okay? And you'll also want a few different materials to cook in. One of those is a humble cheesecloth. So let's show this to you. I'm sure you've all seen one. And a cheesecloth is just a simple cloth with kind of a loose weave in it. And this is what you're actually going to put your rice in for steaming. So you'll want one of these. Again, you can get them almost anywhere. You can get cooking supplies, really anywhere. So a simple cheesecloth would be nice. And you'll also, if you can, want a base steaming pot. This is a good size one. So this is just a really lightweight aluminum, and this is just for the water to steam and boil underneath, okay? And really any pot is okay to use. These are a little more specialized. This is completely optional. It is to hold your rice in throughout the day. It's made of bamboo, and these are relatively traditional. I like this one because it looks like it has little Springboks on it. So, happy little Springbok. So you can find them in all kinds of designs and things like this, but they are harder to find if you're not in Southeast Asia. All they're for is keeping the sticky rice throughout the day. So in a lot of Thai homes, you will make your sticky rice in the morning and then leave it in the bamboo basket so that people can just grab and enjoy throughout the day. So kind of like a cookie jar in a way. The bamboo weaving lets the airflow and moisture levels stay just right to keep the rice nice throughout the day. But like I said, this is completely optional, okay? Yes, did you, with your hand up, did you have a question about the baskets?
I've seen metal bowls used for sticky rice. Are those just as good?
Yes, good question. So you will get the most authentic texture and flavor from a traditional bamboo steamer like this one here. Okay, you can see how there's lots of slots and sort of spaces between the weaving to again facilitate that good airflow. However, the perfect level of moisture can be achieved lots of ways, and if you just have, a stainless steel pot, steamer, and the cheesecloth, as long as you keep a good eye on it, then it's really completely fine. Some people do say that the bamboo flavors the sticky rice. Now, this is debatable after a certain amount of use. I've heard it said that after so many uses, you start to lose a little bit of that additional complexity in the flavor. However, it's really up to your discretion. Yes, and if it's your first time making the dish, I would recommend doing it with just whatever you have on hand. And if you decide you love it and want to make it again and again, then maybe invest in some of the specialized equipment. No, not expensive, especially just a bamboo steamer. It shouldn't be too much. Good. Okay, so setting this off to the side. Any more ingredient questions or equipment questions? Yes.
What is the ideal consistency for the cooked sticky rice? Do we want it to look fluffy?
Oh, good. Texture. This is so important, so thank you for asking. And as the name suggests, it should be sticky, of course. You want it glossy, chewy, and soft. So you should be able to see, each individual rice grain when you look at the sticky rice, but they should all cling together. So a good test is just to pick up some with your fingers, and if it clumps, it thumps or something, it's good to go if it clumps together like that. So that's really what you're looking for. If it's too crunchy, you may not have soaked it long enough.
Can you soak it overnight or will it get mushy?
Yes, so to that, soaking overnight is actually ideal and oftentimes just the easiest thing to do, but you can get away with less. I'd say at least 6 hours. Some people say 4, but I would say more towards 6 at least. If you don't soak it enough, like I said, the middle of the grains will remain hard and crunchy no matter how long you cook it. Sometimes a little crunch is nice, but you want the actual sticky rice to be really nice and chewy. The crunch can be on the top with the sesame seeds.
What's the difference between coconut cream and coconut milk? They're not interchangeable, right?
Yes, important distinction. In fact, I have some. So, coconut cream is actually the thick, fatty layer skimmed from the top of the coconut milk. It's richer, it's higher in fat. The equivalent would be like heavy cream when we're talking about dairy. So coconut milk is the thinner, more liquid product with less fat. So that said, you do want to use full fat of the coconut milk. You do want to use coconut milk for the right consistency, but you don't want to go light or low fat on this. So you want that full fat, and that's going to give the sauce and the entire dish that very velvety rich texture that it's known for, okay? Any other questions before we go on? Great. Well, if there's not any more questions, then we will go ahead and do our cooking demonstration. And I'm going to do that with close-up shots so you can really see what I'm doing and hopefully get a great idea of each step. Remember that before you do this, you will need to have soaked your rice overnight, so do that and make sure to account for that before beginning. There's nothing worse than realizing you've forgotten. But with that said, I'm excited to show you the steps, so let's step over to the counter and we'll get cooking. So you'll want to start by washing and soaking your rice. So measure it out, and then you're going to go ahead and pour it into a bowl. And then you're going to want to rinse it vigorously. You'll want to go ahead and rinse and drain maybe 3 times until the water runs clear. And then you can cover it with water, and you can go ahead and cover the bowl and leave it to soak. Once it's soaked for at least 6 hours, but preferably overnight, you can get ready to steam it. And I'm just going to pop the bamboo basket into the steam base, and then you'll go ahead and take the soaked rice and you're going to want to put it into the cheesecloth. And you don't want to pack it in too tightly, so just gently wrap it up like so and pop it in. Next, you're going to make the coconut syrup. And so while that rice is steaming, combine 1 cup coconut milk, 1/2 cup sugar, 1/2 teaspoon salt, and put that together in a saucepan over medium heat. You're just going to gently stir until the sugar is completely dissolved. You don't want to let it boil, however. You just want it hot enough to integrate, so it will start to look like a proper syrup, and you can just kind of keep stirring until it's all incorporated nicely. It should get nice and smooth as you go too. Sometimes there will be some lumps in the coconut milk, but those should slowly start to incorporate as well. You're also going to want to make your thick topping sauce. You can do this a little bit later on if you like, but for the topping sauce, you'll have 1/2 cup coconut milk, 1 tablespoon sugar, and 1/4 teaspoon salt. You're going to bring that to a gentle simmer and then whisk, whisk, whisk in the cornstarch slurry. That's the cornstarch mixed with just a tiny bit of water, and just whisk and whisk and whisk that up. You can check on the steamed rice, and once you've steamed it for 20 to 25 minutes, it should be ready to go. So lift the cheesecloth and put that in a bowl. You can just softly and gently kind of remove it from the cheesecloth. And you can let it cool a little bit first if you'd like. And then just gently pop that cheesecloth right off. There we go. So you want to stir in the syrup until it's well combined with that sticky rice. And don't worry if the rice looks soupy at first. Eventually it's going to absorb all that creamy goodness. But once you've poured the coconut syrup over that rice and stir it a bit, you can leave it to sit covered for about 20 to 30 minutes. And in that time, I like to prepare the toppings, like slicing the mango. You can slice the mango in myriad ways. You can do little thin slices, or you can simply slice with a paring knife into a grid. And then you can turn over the mango, pop it up, and easily get these little chunks out with a spoon or with your knife. Like I said, as far as the rest of the toppings go, you'll want to toast up those sesame seeds in a pan just to give a little extra crunch, and scoop up the rice. I prepared the topping syrup ahead of time, but you can also do that while the main rice is resting and incorporating. I like to put it into a little syrup pourer, whatever you call it, so you can drizzle over the top just like that. But you can pour it from whatever vessel you prefer. Then we simply top with a little crunchy goodness. You can also use mung bean or anything else you like, but I love the little crunch provided by this sprinkling of sesame seeds. And then it's all ready to go, and it should look something like this, but get creative with plating and have fun with it. So, after seeing those steps, do any of you have any remaining questions that I can answer about technique, about any of the individual parts?
I have one more question.
Please.
Should the cooked sticky rice be warm or should it be served at room temperature?
Yes. So, again, this comes down to preference a bit, but it is traditionally served at room temperature. However, feel free to enjoy it warm and fresh. I like it that way too. I think it's really nice. There's really no wrong way to do it as long as you're enjoying it. So, I have so enjoyed having you today. You've been a really wonderful, active class with great questions. And I know you're all going to do great on this, so feel free to share your results in the group chat. You'll have access to after the class, and I just thank you for cooking with me today. I hope that your dishes turn out absolutely lovely, and a big kakunka for being here with me today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
This was really fun. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck, everybody.
Bye. Fun fact, I'm allergic to mangoes, and I discovered that because I ate mangoes many times, and each time I did, my lips swelled up. So that's fun. They taste really good, and the trick is to just rinse them off with water because that inactivates the oil, which I think is called urushiol. So there's a little fun fact about me.